This country's scientific temperament is tattered like a flower garland given to a rabid monkey. Everyone has the right to be stupid, but this special group of nationalistic Indians are abusing that privilege. So I think you can clearly tell
That he's a Modi supporter.
Yeah.
The average Indian spends close to 20% of their lifetime earnings on a wedding.
you as a corporation are following a certain standard in Europe, but you don't believe that standard should apply in India. Are Indian baby lives worth less? Yeah.
You know who also gets a lot of shit? Seema Taparia.
A lot of people can't fathom a civilization that has tried to balance science and faith as much as possible.
So the situation is worse than we thought.
Will accept it if it is studied in America, repackaged and sold back to you, right, by Dr. Huberman. The scientific method and science as it is free from bias and free from agenda and money is not real.
I think what you're getting at is that there's nothing wrong with these big fancy weddings. People give a lot of shit to people for having fancy weddings.
Yeah, I don't get it. I support it, man. If you want to celebrate in a big, grand way with all the people that you love, if you can afford it, go ahead. At least that's what I think. And make it beautiful.
And in India, unlike the US, we typically plan on getting married just the once.
It's a one-time thing.
One-time expense. You don't have to think, chalo, I have to do this again in 5 years. So
I don't know. I think sometimes people are unfairly critical of people that want to throw a big wedding when it's within their financial means to do so.
the Ambanis,
Right.
they got a lot of crap.
Yeah, and I see that's why I would disagree with people, because in the end it comes down to a percentage of
Absolutely.
expense.
What else does it come down to? But the fact is, the average Indian, this blew me away, the average Indian spends close to 20% of their lifetime earnings
That's bonkers.
on a wedding.
That's bonkers, man.
I mean, personal preference, sure, but there's got to be a bit of
Yeah.
social pressure at play
A
there.
lot of pressure, man. It's a lot of pressure.
The wedding loan industry is its own loan industry.
One of the few countries that have a wedding loan industry. So with the
It's
Ambanis, what would it have been, right? Not even close.
Well, a 1200 crore wedding, I think it is less than 0.1% of their net worth.
Yeah. So they've spent less than 0.1%.
Chindi!
And the average Indian is spending more than 20% of their lifetime earnings. Yeah.
You know who also gets a lot of shit? Seema Taparia. Apparently she charges too much.
Right.
She charges, I think, 1 to 5 lakhs.
So 100,000 to 500,000 rupees upfront plus a percentage of the wedding cost.
So expensive. That's so expensive to pay 5 lakhs, to pay 10 lakhs for finding my life partner. I need to save it for the flower arrangements.
Or the fancy lehenga or something. I mean, yeah.
I want shrimp cocktails.
Dude, I would say 100,000 rupees, which is 1 lakh rupees, for finding the love of my life, that seems like a good deal, right?
Again, I would say just percentage of your wedding.
Correct.
For some people, maybe that's too expensive. But if you will spend 1 crore on a wedding, you should be at least willing to spend 50 lakhs on the person you're going to get married to at that wedding. Huh?
Yeah.
Now, I've heard people say, fair enough, that you can't do the wedding on your own. You can find a person on your own for free.
Correct.
But you haven't, na?
Correct. That's why you're going
to
that.
Seema.
That's why you're going to Seema.
You're not going to her where you have a girlfriend that you love. Chalo, let me see if she'll find someone better.
Correct. Yeah.
You're going because you've not found someone. So that is obviously something you can't do on your own. And it's perfectly good to take help in these things.
Yeah. It's a demand-driven industry. Her industry exists because there is a demand. There's a critical mass of people that can't find or want to go through that process. And therefore, you would assume that finding that partner is the key. What do they say in business? That's one of the KPIs, certainly, of that process, right?
Yeah.
If not the only KPI.
You would think it's all downstream from there.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you look at the cost proportion.
Yeah. To bring that whole conversation together, essentially, if you can afford it and it's not a huge percentage of your lifetime earnings and it's not being done under duress, then go for it. On the other side, people that are being maybe forced into this social commitment of throwing a big wedding at great financial cost, that's something that needs to, be more be more, people need to think about it a lot more and think about the implication that'll have on their family and their finances, right?
I think the sad reality might be is your first point is causing the second point.
Yeah.
People throwing extravagant, lavish weddings in social media culture is what is putting the social pressure
Correct.
on the second group to have them.
Correct.
So till we can find that ability to
Yeah.
see and not want,
Yeah. See and not want. Well said. But that's hard.
it's very hard
Yeah,
because we want by seeing.
Correct. It's the most base human instinct.
I think we can move on from the wedding industry. So we have a couple of explosive things that
Yeah.
have come out in the past few weeks.
Yeah.
One is a study that you're going to talk about right now,
Yeah.
or rather an investigation.
An investigation
and
that's come
then
out.
we are going to talk about the protein study that is rocking the nation, that is India.
Yeah. So Nestle in India has a baby food product called Cerelac. And what is so sinister about this news is that they have found, investigative agency based in Switzerland has basically done a study of Cerelac sold in different countries around the world. And it's found that in India, and there was 2 other developing countries on that list.
Ethiopia and
I think it was Ethiopia.
Okay.
I need to double check, but India being the most glaring one, they've been adding 3 grams of sugar in Cerelac sold here, but not in the UK, not in Switzerland, not in Germany, right? And this is very grave because the addition of this artificial sugar can pose tremendous health risks. But what's crazy about this is that you as a corporation are following a certain standard in Europe, but you don't believe that standard should apply in India. Why no sugar there and sugar here, right? Are Indian baby lives worth less? And that's a hard question to ask. I'm sure that's maybe even a bit alarmist from my standpoint, but you can't help but feel that that double standard is insane.
I think for them, I will give them the benefit of the doubt and say that no babies matter to them rather than just Indian babies don't matter to them, because I believe if the regulations were looser in these other European countries, they would contaminate the product there as well.
Correct. So I think that's what it comes down to. So FSSAI has the burden here to keep a watchful eye on things like these. How many entities are regularly saying, okay, let's go and research all, baby food that's sold.
Speaking of people who are going out there and testing products, Dr. Abby Phillips, TheLiverDoc, has come out with I think a very good study.
Yes.
A much needed study regarding the protein supplementation market in India. And I've heard rumors about how contaminated Indian protein products are, Indian creatine products are, Indian collagen products are. Pretty much every supplementation product in India, I have known and heard that, try to get it abroad if you can. And this study comes out. Here's the first few lines of the abstract. Protein powders, including those containing herbal and dietary supplements such as vitamins, minerals, and other natural or synthetic ingredients, can be associated with hepatotoxicity, that's toxicity of the liver. Protein supplements are often mislabeled and deceptive in their contents. So I read this study and it is about 2 things. And I think first we should address the part of it which people are talking about most, which this study has been marketed as, I would say, which is regarding the amount of protein that is being advertised on our products and the amount of protein we are actually getting in them. So, on overall, of 36 products, 25 protein supplements were mislabeled about their protein content. That's almost 70% of the total number of supplements were mislabeled about their protein content. That is, that the protein content per 100 grams detected in the analysis was less than what was advertised on the product. Certain protein brands were found to contain more than the labeled protein content in the qualification analysis. Before you start getting happy about this, higher protein content could suggest either good quality protein sources used in manufacturing, or it could be a part of the protein or amino spiking where supplement manufacturers intentionally add cheap protein components to deceptively showcase higher protein content. So the situation is worse than we thought.
Right. Yeah. It's scary, man. I mean, I don't know how many people we know or just around the country have it in their head that, they have to take protein supplements. They have to take protein supplements. It's scary to think what the implications of this study might be on those people.
Which kind of brings us to the protein obsession that we have imported from the West. I don't want to beat a dead horse.
Right.
And I have seen many advantages of the Western style of eating, which is much higher in protein.
Right.
Protein is needed for muscle growth.
Absolutely.
No one is going to debate this.
No one's going to debate that. And it's a critical nutrient.
It's a critical nutrient.
In any individual's life. But we're talking about a culture, like a protein culture, which is very different. A toxic protein culture.
A toxic protein culture.
Right? Which will lead unsuspecting customers into products that are not rightly marketed. I wonder where this culture comes from. Is it fully imported from the West? It has to be at some level, right?
It's bodybuilding culture.
Yeah, bodybuilding
It's
culture.
bodybuilding culture. In bodybuilding culture, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight minimum.
Yeah.
2 grams per pound of protein. I don't know. People have taken it to absurd numbers.
Levels, yeah.
There's also a big contribution to protein culture from the weight loss community.
Right.
There's a lot of good things about increasing your protein content in your diet.
Right.
But I have found that they stem from a fundamentally different view of what the body needs to do at a particular time.
Yeah.
This is where we can talk about maybe a Western diet which is higher in protein and a traditional Indian diet which is often criticized for being lacking in protein.
Right.
The Indian diet lacks protein is something I have heard a lot.
Right.
Now it's true, if you have a mound of rice and a little tiny bowl of dal and some pakoras on the side, you're going to be protein deficient.
Correct.
But the idea that you cannot get enough protein from vegetarian sources is patently not true.
It has been thoroughly disproven.
It has been
on
thoroughly
all counts.
disproven.
Yeah.
On all counts.
On 3, I was just watching a talk today on the 3 claims that were made. One, that from vegetarian sources, the amount of protein that you can get is less. That's been disproven. That it is often at a higher caloric intake, right? So you'd have to consume high calories. That has also been disproven. And third is the quality aspect. So the quality of the protein itself, that has also been disproven. So I think we're at a level where now these are just claims.
Say we give meat some credit and there are types of amino acids. The amino acid profile of meats is more wholesome, or if eggs is more wholesome than say the protein you would just get from mushrooms or paneer or soya or tempeh, which are the typical sources of vegetarian protein we talk about. The goal of an Ayurvedic diet is not to deadlift 350 pounds.
Correct.
Or to run a 100-meter dash in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Or to perform feats of strength, or to have a shredded six-pack and bulging biceps.
Yeah.
The goal of an Ayurvedic diet is related to the spiritual pursuits in life.
Yeah.
And also just your healthy day-to-day functioning.
Correct.
It is not designed for extreme sports.
Yeah.
And I think it needs to be applied in those contexts. So if you are bodybuilding, you're going to want to have more protein. Maybe there's even some credit to having some meats.
Fair enough.
But to criticize the Ayurvedic diet as worse because it lacks in protein, because it doesn't lack in protein. You can easily get enough protein if you have a balanced vegetarian diet.
Yeah.
And with that may come a host of other benefits to your life that are not measured in that 1 hour you spend in the gym, but actually are measured in the 23 hours you spend outside the gym.
Absolutely.
Your quality of sleep, your mood, all these things are related, and they are spoken about deeply in Ayurvedic literature and health.
Yeah.
But we know that is all a complete sham. Okay, Abby Phillips has told that to us.
As for the LiverDoc. Yeah.
So this is where we're going to come to the second part of this study.
Yeah.
And which is why I've seen a study where I can love it and be a little skeptical of some other parts of it at the same time. And I did not know anything really about the LiverDoc. I am obsessed with this protein culture. I'm like right there with all these protein boys, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like ready to read this study, and I had no idea about the LiverDoc background. So when I was talking to you about this study, and I just mentioned that hey, it's kind of weird, like this is all about protein, but there's huge chunks of this that are dedicated to how bad green tea extract is, and ashwagandha and turmeric. And I was like, that's a little weird, and that's not even what people are talking about so much. And then I guess I'll let you tell me again. You sent me some old tweets of the LiverDoc. So give some background. So LiverDoc is very famously apparently anti-Ayurveda.
Right. I'll read out a quote, maybe in his own words, to maybe set some context on how this gentleman thinks. I don't want to cast aspersions on his medical ability, which no doubt is very probably right up at standard. He's a superb doctor, I assume. But we're talking about biases, and no one is free from bias in this day and age. So here's a quote. Sometimes I really feel that my fellow Indians deserve their cow urine, cow dung, palm civet, cat semen and elephant feces mentioned as per Ayurvedic texts as curative ingredients for all their diseases. This country's scientific temperament is tattered like a flower garland given to a rabid monkey. Everyone has the right to be stupid, but this special group of nationalistic Indians are abusing that privilege. So I think you can clearly tell that
he's a Modi supporter.
Right. I mean, he has, for one, seems to have a particularly vitriolic take on Ayurveda and kind of Indian traditional medicine, which is a whole other debate that, I would even leave that to, I'd love to have a doctor and an Ayurvedic person on the show and they can duke it out. But one line there really irks me is that this lack of scientific temperament thing. Because that is intellectually dishonest. Because on one level it's intellectually dishonest because we're not. You're looking at a country that is almost 96% now vaccinated against COVID-19, right? No protest on that. Not in other countries, I'm not going to name them, where they don't even believe you and I are vaccinated. So we're not people that are against the scientific method either. So this is the same, but what it comes to is that a lot of people, and I know this will continue to irk people, can't fathom a civilization that has tried to balance science and faith as much as possible. Or see them as different but coexistent worlds. It's the reason why people get irritated, but they can't explain why. A leading gentleman from ISRO,
I was just going to say,
right, will put a rocket on the moon at the cost, or do a Mars mission at the cost of the movie The Martian. Cheaper than making the movie The Martian was our Mars program. But then finish that launch and then go to a temple.
They went before the launch.
Before and after. He loves going to temples. And a lot of people do. And like that irks people. But you're a man of science. Why? And Dr. Somnath has a beautiful line. He's like, science helps me explain the world. But like coming here, it helps me explain things beyond that. To him, that's his explanation. I mean, that's very much I'm paraphrasing what he said. What he says is even more beautiful. I'd love to put it up. But that's what he's saying, right? And I think that ties into this conversation around Ayurveda as well and protein culture. At some level, the Western view, and again, not denigrating it, it's good. I believe in Western medication as well. But it's very much sometimes symptomatic. And two, it's about the science of a fit body, I want to say. But like Ayurveda in many respects is the science of a fit mind.
Absolutely.
I myself having been one of the beneficiaries of this tremendous wealth of information. And you can't help but think that a lot of people that have these very vicious opinions about Indian ideas on mental fitness and health will accept it if it is studied in America, repackaged, and sold back to you, right, by Dr. Huberman.
Yeah,
Right?
we just need to wait for Dr. Huberman to call ashwagandha some sort of botanical, dietary, antioxidant,
Yeah.
triglyceride.
Yeah. And then you'll have people, it'll be the rage. Or what is it? Non-sleep, deep rest. Yog Nidra. Right? Or they had another crazy term for Anulom Vilom in pranayam. Right? Like the psychological sigh and like a deep inhale and exhale process. And you're like, yeah, okay, great. You can put words to it. Sure. And you've implemented your scientific method on it to test it because you believe in the scientific method, which I do too. But that does not change the fact that it's still something that can be tremendously beneficial to people.
And what do they say about tradition? Traditions are just experiments that worked.
Yeah. What stays is it's a rigorous testing process. I'll tell you another story, Rohan. This one was a fascinating one from my own life. When I was studying environmental science, I took a trip to the Nilgiris Biosphere Reserve. So I spent a day with members of the Toda tribe in the Nilgiris forest. So the gentleman that organizes, he gave me an allopathic book, so a Western medication book. And that book was just talking about what are certain plants that are used in Western drugs. Okay. So the chemical formula was derived from these plants. So I had this book and he told me, hey, you go there, don't say anything about the book. Just go with the woman who is like the kind of doctor there in the village. And it's a very Spartan village, man. Like, you can't even imagine what I'm describing. Like, very, very rural, middle of nowhere in the forest. Go with her and just ask her, what does this plant do, this plant do? Just go around and ask her. And then you have your book and you see what she's saying. I said, okay. I mean, like, dude, this is like a, encyclopedic knowledge of Western medication and drugs and this like that. I go with this lady and she's like, this is for this. I open the book, spot on. This plant is for this. This plant, I mean, she's not naming the medical term, but she's like, this is for this stomach pain. This is for eyes. This is for this. This is for this. Dude, I was mind blown, Rohan. So to also say that there's not a tremendous repository of indigenous knowledge on treatment of diseases in India, to say that it doesn't exist is patently untrue. And at some level, yeah, it's vitriolic. It's showing that you have some bias against this because you believe it's against a scientific method. Sure, okay, then maybe what you need to do is take that and have it tested for you to believe it. But some people, this is the culture that they've grown into, and grown with. So I think India is about that. Ayurveda is about that balance, right? Let's find that balance. I take Western medication, but that does not mean I'm going to turn around and say, I don't believe any of these things.
I sometimes feel I've met a lot of scientists, a lot of doctors who are perfectly comfortable with the idea of Ayurveda as being supplemental. But I've also met some scientists who feel almost threatened by the idea of traditional medicine.
Yeah.
To the extent where it feels like their whole personality will crumble if it could possibly be true that turmeric is good for you.
Correct. So one thing is, you're spot on. One thing is their personality is based on that. And two is also very much for a lot of doctors, maybe this is more so in the US, your income stream is based on big pharma supporting you. And this is not a conspiratorial thing. Yeah. I support Western medication, but it is true. Companies pay doctors to push certain drugs. And tomorrow, if you have so what big pharma companies don't like is, one is low-cost medical manufacturers, because that eats into their margins big time. What's one of the countries that do the leading low-cost generic drugs? India. And they don't like sometimes like traditionally derived things, because then that you're taking the
hold on the drug away.
Correct. I mean, look at what the Sackler family through Purdue Pharma did in the US, right? They knew that this was severely addictive opioids, right? And doctors were pushing this product because they were getting paid to push this drug. So to say that like the scientific method and science as it is free from bias and free from agenda and money is not real. It's not
The scientific method in theory may be, but in practice, it takes money to run studies.
Yeah, right. So the LiverDoc's views on this, on Ayurveda, I don't know how much of that is truly from a position of, no, this is all quackery. I hate Ayurveda and everything it stands for. But again, I don't want to cast an aspersion on him. That's
Even if he's not, I just thought it's weird, like Ayurvedic addition into protein supplements and the issues that cause is totally different.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of approach to the type of study it is, because this type of study, this type of study is to show that they are mislabeling products.
Correct.
But with the Ayurvedic supplements, these are all labeled products.
Correct.
They are not sneaking in green tea extract and that being bad. This is people are buying. So it feels like he should be putting out completely independent research showing that green tea extracts in protein powders are bad.
Right.
And completely independent research showing that protein powders don't have as much protein as they say they do.
Correct.
So this one has a lot of great evidence to show that protein powders do not have as much protein as they say they do.
Yeah.
But the aspersions that these substances cause these problems are just referenced in here.
Correct.
The studies do not conclude that.
And I know he's done a lot of research that he claims that it's all quackery and it's leading to liver disease. Like he has claims on ashwagandha and all, which I haven't gone into detail, and I would again love doctors to juke this one. Haldi. Grew up with haldi, man. I feel good after having a haldi kada, man. That's all I know.
Yeah.
But and then they say, okay, that's anecdotal. I'm like, okay, fine. But to say that there's no scientific temperament in this country is you're missing the forest for the trees. You're not understanding that Indians are happy to balance both.
Yeah. We do not have that cognitive dissonance dealing with the fact that we can love science and still
like dabble with the world of faith. It's a larger question. I think that's what I love about reading about Ayurveda, at least. It's like, when they say it's a science of the mind, it really is. Like how much of my neck pain, shoulder pain is coming through stress. Okay, what is the source of that stress? And I think if you get into that, it's real, man. I don't know. Maybe Huberman's got to take this up, but I think there's something to it, Rohan. I really think like the stress in the protein culture, the stress to maybe be fit, to look the part, is like driving kids into a very dark place.
Steroid use in India is going up.
Yeah.
There are these influencers who say, I can't wait till someone accuses me of being on steroids. That will be my biggest win. Because as a natty, I'll be accused of being on steroids. Great attitude.
Yeah.
I don't want to take any names, but I think y'all are on steroids. and I think you should stop. Because I think there's a chance that no one accused you of being on steroids and you were just waiting for that day, and then you realize the only way to get that jacked is to get on steroids, and then you started taking them and now people are accusing you of being on steroids.
Yeah. Or that's what you're saying. There's a philosophical difference. Like one is, okay, if you want to go and bench 300, that's a different goal. But if you're seeking something else, then I think this world of Ayurveda and yoga has something to offer that I'd not seen being offered anywhere else. Especially with something as simple as breathing. Can you think about that? We don't breathe right. I forget. I was in a wonderful talk recently. It was like, thank God that at least that is involuntary. Otherwise, how busy we are, we'll forget to do that also. Right? And sometimes we do. We don't. And that's what it's saying. Slow down. Take a deep breath. Right? So I think there's a lot of merit to it. But some people have this hatred. I don't know where it stems from.
Yeah. You can see it in how they speak about it. It's
correct. Like I read out that tweet, right? There's an anger towards these people. So they see it as like, you're backward and you're setting the country back.
And on the other side, there's also going to be hippy-dippy people who believe that all you need is naturopathic medicine. Just grab a kada, touch your feet to the ground, hear the sound of the ocean, and it'll cure your cancer.
Right. Which is
Please don't do that. This
Yeah.
is not medical advice, and I want to say
Yeah.
again for the record that
Yeah.
none of this said here is medical advice.
Yeah. And we're both firm believers that Western medication also has its place and has been responsible for tremendous leaps in Indian nutrition and health.
Yes.
Right? Like from polio to smallpox to
To the 96% vaccine rate.
Yeah, yeah. So definitely has a role. So, and I love reading. There's like physicists, some of the greatest physicists of this world, exploring concepts of matter and time. Right. So as scientific as you can be, from Niels Bohr to Oppenheimer himself to Schrödinger, Heisenberg, all have been profoundly impacted by and interested in the faith of this land, Hinduism and dharmic concepts in general, and for a whole host of reasons. But I'll read you one quote, and this is from someone like Schrödinger, right? Who's behind the famous thought experiment of Schrödinger's cat. And even someone like him, a physicist, says the Bhagavad Gita is the most beautiful philosophical song existing in any known tongue. Right? So maybe those were simpler times where we are not so polarized. You know, these are absolute giants of physics. It was a very objective, scientific thought. And for them to even dabble in this philosophical idea means there's some merit to it. At least I'd like to believe so. So yeah, it's all about finding that balance between these two worlds. And yeah, for some people that's hard. But you know, we will put a rocket on the moon. And some of the people will go to temples after.
Yeah, good. All right, man. I think that's it for this episode. It's a wrap. On your word, last week, by the way, I got my voter registration done.
Yes, superb.
Is there any value in like going there and say I don't know who I want to vote for? There's still real value in going there and putting no.
No, I don't think so. I generally don't support a NOTA. It's called none of the above.
Why?
Because let's say you're supporting the opposition here and you believe like somehow that most of the opposition believes they're not in the fight at all, right? So let's say you believe you're not in the fight, and let's say there's not many votes for either, but the party that you don't like has slightly more, but you have like 100 in none of the above. Let's say it's out of 100, right? 98 NOTA. 1 is A and 0 is B because you all did NOTA, then A would end up winning, right? So the NOTA...
But if I am truly 50-50 on it, exactly 50-50 in
then
my
you go
heart,
NOTA, I guess.
you get what I'm saying? It's representative of what the country feels like. So why should I give my vote to someone if I'm
shouldn't
exactly
be forced into
50-50?
giving a vote. But still go and exercise that right.
I think that's important. Let people go and at least let people know how many people came to vote but didn't have a reason to throw their weight behind any party.
Yeah. Well, the greatest electoral exercise in the world, a celebration of democracy, has begun. So we'll check back in on June 4th and we'll know which direction this country is going.
Okay. So wrap, guys. Thank you for watching.